Can you feel like the passion burning off me? Hello my lovely people, my name is Michaela. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where we talk about all things books. Today we're going to be talking about my favourite authors, my auto-buy authors, the people who I would read their shopping lists. But not just that, we're also going to be talking about my favourite books from them. Actually, I think as well, I will tell you my least favourite books from them. That is very off the cuff. I didn't plan that, but maybe that will give you a bit of an insight into if something's my least favourite from them and you've read it, then you could try a different book from them. Because I know sometimes if we read a book from an author and we don't love it, it can put us off reading another. So if I tell you my least favourite, maybe that'll convince you to give them another go. So let's keep the introduction short and sweet. Thank you for being here. Please hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. The first author I want to talk about is Rachel Harrison. I absolutely love Rachel Harrison's writing. I love all of these authors I'm going to talk about, but Rachel Harrison, her writing is what gets me. Like, her writing just connects with me on like a deep level for some reason or another. I love all of these authors that I'm going to talk about for different reasons, but yeah, I think the reason I love Rachel Harrison the most is her writing style. I think like when I'm reading it, I feel like the book has been written just for me. I'm going to tell you my top 2 books from each author and then also my least favourite. So in second place, we've got Cackle. The best way I can describe Cackle is a cozy, witchy, feminist horror. Now, all of Rachel Harrison's books are described as horror, and I think that's because the topics are like what they cover. But when I say horror, I don't necessarily mean like blood, guts and gore. I mean like it's hard to explain because I personally don't see them as horror, but that's what they're categorised as. Who am I to argue with that? In Cackle, we meet a woman called Annie who has just split up from her boyfriend. She's just about to hit 30 and she's moving to a brand new town to have a completely fresh start, as she thought she was going to be with her boyfriend forever and now she's got to start again. When one day at the farmer's market, she meets a woman called Sophie. Everybody seems to be afraid of this Sophie character. Like, people just don't seem to like her. Like, people are wary of her. But Annie seems to connect with her straight away. And the rumour is that Sophie may be the town witch. This book has just some of the best characters. It's a story of found family. It's a story of like friendship. It's a story of finding yourself later in life. And later in life, your 30s is definitely not later in your life. I'm in my 30s. But it's just the most wholesome story. And like, with all the girl vibes, you know. I loved this book so much that I actually went out and got a tattoo of one of the characters. Is that insane? Maybe, but that's what I did. I'm not going to tell you what that is because the character's called Ralph. If you've read the book, you know. But like, it's not a spoiler, but I just think like you should just go into it like not knowing, because when you find out, it's just, oh, I love it. I actually annotated the book when I read it as well, and like some of like the quotes and stuff and the things that were just said, I could really relate to. I would really recommend this book to you if you are like in your late 20s, early 30s, and you just like cozy feminist horror. That's who I would recommend this book to. Now, my favourite book of all time is Black Sheep. And now this was actually the first book I read from Rachel Harrison, and it sent me down a rabbit hole, and it's the book that made me fall in love with her as an author. Now, I just want to preface this by saying this is quite a Marmite book. Most people who I have spoken to do not like this book. You're either going to absolutely love this book or you're absolutely going to hate it. There's just no in between when it comes to this book. But I think it's absolutely incredible. And if you don't like it, please don't tell me, because I will take it personally. So the book starts out and we meet a girl called Vesper. Vesper is working as a waitress, and we quickly find out that she used to be in a cult. She was born into a cult. She didn't really agree with the cult, so she made a decision to leave, and her parents and the whole cult basically said, you are not welcome, do not ever come back. Like, if you make this decision, that's it, you're out. And then one day she gets a wedding invitation for her cousin. So she's going to go back to the cult. I'm not going to tell you what the cult is in this book because I think it's a spoiler. But if you go on Goodreads, it does tell you, like, in the reviews and stuff. But you don't find out, I want to say, until like 70 to 80 pages in. And my reaction when I found out what the cult was, oh my God. I literally, like, do you know when you just put the book down and you're just like, no, stop. So yeah, I think it's a spoiler. I'm not going to tell you. Just be mindful, like, when you're reading reviews and stuff, because people do say it, but I think it's a spoiler. And again, I really found myself relating to Vesper, which it's weird if you have read this book, but the writing, the things that were being said, it follows like quite a complex like mother-daughter relationship, and like I could just really relate, and I understood Vesper. And again, it's the writing style, it gets me every single time. Like the book is slightly unhinged as well, like as it gets to the end, like it goes off. I would say Black Sheep like is the one where like it goes off the most out of Rachel Harrison's books. So take with that what you will. Like I said, this is a very Marmite book. You're either gonna love it or absolutely hate it. But I really hope you love it. I actually have 2 copies of this book. I have the UK version and then I have the American version. And tell me that that American cover is not unreal. Like, we got done dirty in the UK. We always get done dirty. My least favourite book by Rachel Harrison, which pains me to say, is The Return. Now, this was Rachel Harrison's debut novel, so I'm putting it down to that. In this book, we meet a group of 3 friends, and one of their friends went missing. I think it was like a year ago, and nobody ever found out what happened to her. She just went missing. And then one day, she just turns up out of the blue, and she's a bit weird. She comes back, and she's just not the same. It's like, what happened to her in that time where she was missing? Now, I would definitely describe this book as a horror. It's quite gory in places, like some of the descriptions were quite vivid, but for some reason I really couldn't like connect to any of the characters in this one. Like, I just didn't love the story. I didn't have the same impact as what the others have had on me. And like, I did read this book quite a bit later. I want to say I read it towards like the end of last year. So by that point, like I already had like my favourite Rachel Harrison books that she had published later. And I just feel like you can tell like how she's developed as an author from this debut novel. So if you've read The Return and you didn't like it, give her another go. Give those ones a go. And like all the rest of them, I still recommend as well. So I have very nearly read all of Rachel Harrison's books at this point. I think I have read all of them apart from Such Sharp Teeth. So I need to read that as soon as possible, because then I can film a Rachel Harrison backlist ranking video. My next favourite / auto by author is Riley Sager. Now, I'm going to start out with the worst book of his, because this was actually the first book I picked up from Riley Sager, and I can't explain to you how much I hated this book, but I'm so glad I gave him another chance. And that book is The House Across the Lake. This may be my least favourite book that I've read from him. However, it is the book that inspired me to start my BookTok account, because like I was very much in BookTok before I became a BookTok creator. And I read this book and I absolutely hated it. Like, when something happened in this book, like I literally slammed my book and threw it. And I was like, I need to make a video. I need to make a video and talk about this book. So it's a blessing in disguise, I don't know. I think if you like scroll down on my TikTok, it's the first talking video I ever did, like 2.5 years ago. So thanks Riley Sager for that, I guess. This book follows an actress who has recently become widowed. So she's escaped to this lake house to like kind of be in solitude and grieve. And like when I say it's a lake house, I mean like it's a bougie lake house. And across the lake is also another big house that's like glass fronted, stunning. And she sees a couple in there and she thinks she sees the husband kill the wife. So she becomes obsessed with like trying to solve the case, but like she's a bit of an unreliable narrator. So if you like an unreliable narrator, you could like this book. But yeah, when something happened, it infuriated me. It's not where I wanted the book to go. It's not to my personal taste. I was just like, I felt like it was a cop-out. Obviously, like, spoiler warning. No, actually, no spoiler warning. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but yeah, it didn't hit for me. But I didn't give up. I persevered and I decided to give him another go. And my second place favourite book is Lock Every Door. In this book, we meet a girl called Jewell. Jewell is homeless, and one day she's offered the chance to move into this like luxury apartment complex in New York. It's called the Bartholomew, and like there's got to be a catch there, but like they're like, no, we need you to come and move in this apartment rent free and just be a house sitter until we find a permanent tenant. So obviously like she's down on her luck. She's like, yeah, okay, sure, like I'll move in. When she meets another house sitter who says that the Bartholomew isn't quite what it seems. And this book is just like all Victorian Gothic vibes. It gave me Gothic vibes, like the way that the building was described. I really felt like I could see it in my mind. This also had like one of my favourite tropes in a book. And again, I can't say, it's so hard sometimes to tell you like why I love a book without it being a spoiler. But it has just one of my favourite tropes in it. I had no idea where this story was going. I was shooketh. Like, of all the things that I thought it could be, where it went was the least like place I thought it was going to go. And because it's just set in this like New York Gothic apartment, like it felt creepy. I felt it's a perfect one to read around Halloween, I would say, but or like fall, autumn. It gives you those sort of vibes. And then my favourite book from Riley Sager is The Only One Left. And I read this, I want to say it was like 2023, and I can still remember everything about this book. This was one of the twistiest thrillers I've ever read. I got whiplash. So in The Only One Left, Kit is a carer. She looks after elderly people, she looks after people who are unwell. When she gets offered a job to look after the infamous Lenora Hope. Lenora Hope was accused of killing her whole family when she was a child. Like, there's a rhyme that everybody says about her, and she is infamous in the town where they live. And she lives in this big house up on the cliff top. Lenora is confined to her bed. She is paralysed, she can't walk, she can't talk. So Kit is hired to become her live-in carer. And the way they communicate is a typewriter. And one day, Lenora says to Kit, like, I want to confess. I want to tell you what actually happened the night that all my family died. And something Riley Sager does so well is settings. Like the setting of this, like with the house on the cliff top, it was just vibes. The vibes were immaculate. And the twists, I can't explain to you how twisty this book was. It was literally like twist after twist after twist, bang, bang, bang. Like, I wish that they were spread out a little bit in the middle. That would be my only criticism of this book. Like, I wish they were kind of like more spread out. But just when you think like, what the hell is going to happen? Something else will hit you. Go pick up this book. The next author I want to talk about is Lisa Jewell. Now, Lisa Jewell is my queen of thrillers. Like, she can do no wrong. Well, actually she can, because there's a least favourite book. But she is, I will literally pre-order her book as soon as it is announced. I've also been to a couple of her author signings now. And again, I will continue to go to every author signing that is announced near me, because she is just the most loveliest human ever. So one of two of my favourite books from Lisa Jewell is Then She Was Gone. This book will rip your heart to shreds. Then She Was Gone follows the story of Laurel. Laurel's daughter Ellie went missing 10 years ago, and nobody ever knew what happened to her. She literally just vanished, and it's basically a cold case. Obviously, Laurel is heartbroken. She's grieving the loss of her daughter, and like, life has never been the same since. When one day she meets a man in a coffee shop and she starts dating again. He then introduces her to his daughter, who looks exactly like Laurel's missing daughter, Ellie. I see people talking about this book and people are like, oh, it was so predictable. I knew exactly where I was going. But like, that's the point of the book. It's like, you're supposed to be feeling this dread as you're reading it, knowing what is coming. And I can't explain to you, like, not many books make me cry. I've read this book twice. I read it physically once and I did it on the audio the second time. And both times it literally made me cry. It's heartbreaking. And I've spoken about this before, but sometimes thriller books don't need like these shocking plot twists to be good. And I think Lisa Jewell is a prime example of that. I think a lot of her books don't have that shocking plot twist, but they are amazing. I always class them as like literary thrillers. And then my favourite book by Lisa Jewell is one that I don't shut up talking about, and for a good reason, and that is None of This Is True. This was so different for Lisa Jewell. Like, it literally felt like so fresh, like as I was reading it, and I was like, Lisa Jewell, you have leveled up, girl. The book is told through like the form of Netflix documentaries and like a podcast, and that's something that Lisa Jewell has never done before, and she absolutely smashed it. It follows the story of Alex and Josie, who are two people who meet randomly in a bar one night and realise that they're birthday twins. They have exactly the same birthday, they're exactly the same age, and they were born in the same hospital, but their lives couldn't be more different. Alex is a successful podcaster and Josie just doesn't really have anything going on, but Josie becomes a bit obsessed with Alex and tries to worm her way into her life. The way that this book is told is just so good, is so gripping. It's one of the best audiobooks I've actually listened to, so maybe try this on audio because it's just full cast, full sound effects. It is perfection in a book. Now, picking my least favourite Lisa Jewell was hard because there isn't any I actively dislike. I have enjoyed them all, but something's got to come last, and I went with Watching You. In this book, we meet a group of neighbours who all live in this community called Melville Heights in Bristol, and we get multiple points of view, and I think that's something I really struggled with, and this book is just extremely long. We get so many different points of view, and it's all about basically the neighbours watching each other. Something goes down, and it's a bit like neighbourhood domestic drama, which most of the time I do actually like, but this just felt a bit clunky. It's just under 500 pages, and I don't think any thriller book needs to be that long, to be honest with you. I think when I read it, I gave it 3 stars. I didn't actively hate anything about it. I just thought it was a pretty fine thriller and one that you could probably skip from her backlist. I recently got the arc of her next release, Don't Let Him In, and I'm so excited to read it. So who knows, this list could change. I may have a new favourite. Now, Taylor Jenkins Reid is not a thriller author. However, I cannot explain how obsessed I am with this woman. Everything she writes turns to gold, I swear, for me anyway. To me, her books are perfection. My second favourite book that I have read from her is actually Carrie Soto Is Back, and I was not excited to read this. The reason I picked it up was because I'm obsessed with Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I decided to pick it up one day and just give it a go because it's about tennis. Now, I don't like tennis. I don't think I've ever watched a tennis match in my life. I don't think I've ever played tennis. That is not something that interests me whatsoever. So when I found out that this book follows a tennis player, I was just oh, am I gonna love it? I don't know, but I'll give it a go because it's Taylor Jenkins Reid. And let me tell you, I have never been so invested in tennis in my life. And I just want to clarify that I still don't like tennis. I still wouldn't go out and watch a tennis match, but this tennis player, Carrie Soto, love her. So the book is basically about a tennis player named Carrie Soto. She was the best of the best when she was younger, and we follow her as she's now a bit older, and she decides that she's going to come out of retirement, but she's past the age that you should be when you play in for the pros. But she's no, I'm coming out of retirement. And it's the story of that, which, let's be real, that sounds a bit, doesn't it? But just trust me on this one, guys. If you've been putting it off for that reason, then please give it a go. And then my favourite book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this book is actually my favourite book of all time. Out of any genre, I tell everybody to read this book. I'm so passionate about it. And that is 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. God, this book will hold a special place in my heart forever. I think that this book will be a modern classic. I'm convinced it's going to be a modern classic. If you've been living under a rock, this book follows the story of Evelyn Hugo, who is this famous actress. She was an A-list celebrity, and she had 7 husbands. And the media loved to talk about her and her husbands and everything she went through. They loved to speculate, and I feel it has a lot to say on celebrity drama, celebrity gossip. But now Evelyn Hugo has just sat down with an interviewer, and she's gonna tell all. She's gonna tell all the secrets on all of her husbands, what really happened, and who she really is. People can get to know her for the first time because it's all just been speculation. And the book contains the newspaper articles as you're going through the time, and I can't explain to you this book how much it means to me. I actually can't. It's quite sad, to be honest. I'm not joking when I say I force everybody to read this book. I even forced my girlfriend, who wasn't a reader at the time, so I was just listen to the audiobook, and even she cried. So I've got multiple special editions of this book. If you haven't read it yet, this is your sign. I think Taylor Jenkins Reid just has this way of writing characters. She writes characters that I feel I know deep down. She writes characters that I feel I know on a deep, deep level. If you didn't tell me this was a fiction book, I'd probably think they were non-fiction. These characters feel that real to me. And how unreal to be that good of a writer. Can you feel the passion burning off me? So again, picking a least favourite book was quite difficult for me, but I did go with Malibu Rising, and again, I didn't hate this book. I actually quite enjoyed it. So this book is set in Malibu, so the vibes are immaculate. You just know what Taylor Jenkins Reid writing, like the vibes are going to be immaculate, and it follows the story of 4 siblings who throw a party one night and then 24 hours later their lives are like changed forever. It's probably a good one to read on holiday because like it's set in Malibu. Did I say Miami before? If I said Miami, I meant Malibu. It's set in Malibu. So if you're going on holiday, this is probably a really good one to read because yeah, the vibes are just so good. But it's still not like your typical summer read, like it's full of drama. And something I love is Taylor Jenkins Reid like interconnects her books, like so they're not a series by any stretch of the imagination, but like characters from each book will pop up in another book, and unless you've read that book, like you wouldn't know, and it doesn't like connect in any sort of way, but you're just like, oh my god, that's that character from Carrie Soto is back. And I just love that like little like interconnecting worlds. Bloody love Taylor Jenkins Reid, and her book that's coming out, I think is in June, is called Atmosphere, and it's about a sapphic like lesbian space story. Stop. Okay, and then the author we're going to finish on is one that if you've watched any of my videos, this isn't going to come as a surprise to you at all, and that is John Marrs. I've read every single book that John Marrs currently has published, which I think is 13. I am obsessed with him. I've been obsessed with him for absolutely years, and I will forever to read anything that he puts out. Now let's start out with my least favourite book from John Marrs, because there actually is a least favourite, and that is The Minders. Now this is actually a fun fact, but last year I was lucky enough to do an interview with John Marrs where he asked me what my least favourite book of his was, and I said The Minders, and he said that's his too. And I was like, no, stop. I was actually so nervous when he asked me that question, because like, how do you tell an author like what book you didn't like of theirs? I literally, but yeah, he agreed with me, so it was fine. This book tells the story of 5 people who have had the government secrets implanted into their brain. And they've done that because hackers are trying to hack like computer systems. So by transferring this data into people's brains, nobody knows who these people are, and like the secrets will be safe. And now listen, I am John Marrs's like near future Black Mirror style books. They're my favourite books of his, but for some reason this just didn't connect for me. And yeah, it's definitely my least favourite. But out of 13 books, that's probably the only one that I didn't really like. So, I mean, that's not bad. My second favourite is The Stranger in Her House, which is your standard psychological thriller. This is actually on Kindle Unlimited too, so if you needed an even more of an excuse, there it is. This follows the story of Connie and Gwen, who are mother and daughter. Sadly, Gwen's got dementia, so Connie has just come back from Italy where she was working, and she's going to look after her mum. A charity has sent round a guy named Paul, who's going to help out like with cutting the grass, cutting the hedges, that kind of thing. When Connie starts to suspect that he's a bit suspicious, he's trying to worm his way into her mum's life a bit too much. This is one of the twistiest books I've ever read. Like, but twists the whole way through. Like, not just at the end, the whole way through. Meaning, like, you literally can't stop turning the pages. It's got such short chapters. Everything's on a cliffhanger. It's just one of those books that is just so easy to binge in like one sitting or 24 hours, because you just have to know like where it's going to go. I also feel like this book has got something to say, and I love that. I love a book that's got something to say, and like when you read the author note, you will get it. And then my favourite book from John Marrs, but my favourite thriller book of all time, is The One. Again, this is another one that I forced down people's throat. I'm like, guys, if you're going to take recommendations from me, 2 recommendations, it would be 7 Husbands of Evelyn and Hugo and The One by John Marrs. So again, this is set in the near future world where like they're not dystopian, because like these things could be a possibility. And scientists have just discovered that every single person has one true love. They have one true soulmate who they are matched to. And they find this out by doing DNA swabs, so DNA matching. And you send it in, and then they will match you to, it could be literally anyone. And we follow 5 couples who have gone through this DNA matching. And like a serial killer gets matched with a police officer, because like at the end of the day, you don't choose who you're going to be matched with. But every single character you follow just has like this in their own interesting story. It's kind of like, it's not 5 books in one, but every single character, you just have to know where it's going to go. Again, it's trademark style where everything is on a cliffhanger, and you just have to keep turning those pages. I've read this book 3 times. Is that a bit weird? I don't know, maybe, but honestly, it is just so good. I can't explain to you how good this book actually is. This book was actually turned into a Netflix series, so you may have heard of it if you haven't read it yet because of that. And the Netflix series is completely different to the book. Like, they kind of just use like the DNA matching element of it. They didn't like take the stories. So if you did read this, if you have watched the series, don't let that put you off. Please still read the book. And they are my top 5 authors of all time and my favourite books and my least favourite books by them. I hope you found this video helpful. If you want me to do like some more, because I have got some more, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Please hit that subscribe button and give it a like, and I shall see you next time.